growth and urbanization have been for years driving global demand for infrastructure. However, despite decades of investment from the public and private sectors around the world, the supply of capital and expertise is still far from meeting the surging demand. The multilateral Belt and Road Initiative, put forward by China, is precisely a creative proposal to fill this gap. First introduced in 2013, the vision of the Belt and Road Initiative is to connect the continents through infrastructure investment, cultural exchange, technological know-how transfer, and other measures. It is time for us to review the initiative's impacts, as well as to brainstorm new ideas to attract more stakeholders. What are the most updated policies and industry trends related to regional and global partnerships? How to expand clean infrastructure? What are the implications for local collaboration? Caixin Debate, the Belt and Road Impact.
大家早上好，欢迎来到财新辩论，我是财新国际的李欣。接下来我们的环节将用英文进行。Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Caixin Debate, collaboratively with the World Economic Forum. And our topic today is very important: the Belt and Road impact. From its inception in 2013 to concrete efforts over the last few years, Belt and Road is enormous. Covers more than 80 countries and involves 40% of the world's GDP. And it's not just numbers. It's bridges, roads, facilities, sewage plants. It translated into real impacts of people's lives. And it's global in its reach and local in its impact. The initiative is hugely impactful and complex. Developing countries might ask, I want to participate, but can I pay for it? And Chinese SOEs, which leading many of the efforts, may also ask, I want to enter into these new markets, but which have been heavily penetrated by our Western counterparts. So should I collaborate or compete? And also for the small and medium-sized companies, they also want to ask, is this just for the big players, or what's in this for us? So with all this question in mind and more, we have an exceptionally qualified panel to discuss that with us today. And with viewpoints from the governments, the multinational development banks, funds, companies, Chinese companies, and international companies. So without further ado, we'll start today's discussion, and we'll leave some time for questions today. And as you know, we have a full panel, so please keep your questions short, without statement. Let's first start with the gentleman sitting on my right, Prime Minister Mr. Shahid Khan Abbasi. Pakistan has perhaps the most comprehensive implementation or collaboration on the BRI, or the Belt and Road Initiative. How would you assess the local impacts?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And we believe that the Belt and Road Initiative is perfectly in sync with the 2018 World Economic Forum meeting about creating a shared future in a fractured world. The BRI is indeed about creating a future amongst the participant countries. Pakistan is today perhaps the most visible part of the BRI, with the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. But when we talk in terms of infrastructure, it is much more than that. Yeah. The BRI is a connection between a series of countries, regions, civilizations, and it's a link together to create a shared prosperity. In terms of defining the BRI, I would say that BRI is the physical manifestation of the bonds between countries that have existed through history. And this will cause a significant improvement in the lives of their citizens. The BRI will result in freer movement of people, goods, and ideas, and also result in a greater culture of openness between the countries. And we strongly recognize the vision and initiative by China and President Xi. What they've done is taken the linkages of yesterday, transposed them onto the fractures of today, and created connectivity for tomorrow. Half of humanity lives in this region. So this is perhaps the best place to start working on the fractures and creating connectivity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that in a historical perspective and a very comprehensive view. And next, I want to hear from President of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Mr. Jin Liqun. AIIB, as we know it, is really at the forefront of BRI, and you probably can help us answer one of the most frequently asked questions. Since its inception, how BRI has evolved in the last several years?
You see, we now have 84 members of our bank. So I would say most of the countries of our, who are our members probably fall into the category of so-called BNI platform. So it is quite natural for AIIB to be doing a lot of infrastructure projects with the support of the member countries. We would be very much willing to consider any projects proposed by the member countries. But of course, we have to look at the basic requirements, whether these kind of projects proposed to us would merit the financial support. Basically, first criterion is financial sustainability. We should not do a project which would be loss-making. We will never do a project which would be a white elephant. The second is the support or improvement of the environment. We will be able to finance infrastructure projects without leaving a big footprint in the environment. Instead, we should be able to improve the environment when we promote infrastructure investment, and I can highlight that later on. The third is any project we do in any country, any area, must be embraced by the local people. We will never ever do anything which would create problems for the local.
Debate, the Belt and Road Impact.
大家早上好，欢迎来到财新辩论，我是财新国际的李欣。接下来我们的环节将用英文进行。Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 财新 debate, collaboratively with the World Economic Forum. And our topic today is very important: the Belt and Road Impact. From its inception in 2013 to concrete efforts over the last few years, Belt and Road is enormous. Covers more than 80 countries and involves 40% of the world's GDP. And it's not just numbers, it's bridges, roads, facilities, sewage plants. It translated into real impacts of people's lives. And it's global in its reach and local in its impact. The initiative is hugely impactful and complex. Developing countries might ask, I want to participate, but can I pay for it? And Chinese SOEs, which leading many of the efforts, may also ask, I want to enter into these new markets, but which have been heavily penetrated by our Western counterparts. So should I collaborate or compete? And also for the small and medium-sized companies, they also want to ask, is this just for the big players or what's in this for us? So with all this question in mind and more, we have an exceptionally qualified panel to discuss that with us today. And with viewpoints from the governments, the multinational development banks, funds, companies, Chinese companies, and international companies. So without further ado, we'll start today's discussion, and we'll leave some time for questions today. And as you know, we have a full panel, so please keep your questions short, without statement. Let's first start with the gentleman sitting on my right, Prime Minister Mr. Shahid Khan Abbasi. Pakistan has perhaps the most comprehensive implementation or collaboration on the BRI or the Belt and Road Initiative. How would you assess the local impacts?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And we believe that the Belt and Road Initiative is perfectly in sync with the 2018 World Economic Forum meeting about creating a shared future in a fractured world. The BRI is indeed about creating a future amongst the participant countries. Pakistan is today perhaps the most visible part of the BRI with the China-Pakistan economic corridor. But when we talk in terms of infrastructure, it is much more than that.
Yeah.
It is, the BRI is a connection between a series of countries, regions, civilizations, and it's a link together to create a shared prosperity. In terms of defining the BRI, I would say that BRI is the physical manifestation of the bonds between countries that have existed through history. And this will cause a significant improvement in the lives of their citizens. The BRI will result in freer movement of people, goods, and ideas, and also result in a greater culture of openness between the countries. And we strongly recognize the vision and initiative by China and President Xi. What they've done is taken the linkages of yesterday, transposed them onto the fractures of today, and created connectivity for tomorrow. Half of humanity lives in this region. So this is perhaps the best place to start working on the fractures and creating connectivity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that in a historical perspective and a very comprehensive view. And next, I want to hear from President of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Mr. Jin Liqun. AIIB, as we know it, is really at the forefront of BRI, and you probably can help us answer one of the most frequently asked questions. Since its inception, how BRI has evolved in the last several years?
You see, we now have 84 members of our bank. So I would say most of the countries of our, who are our members probably falling into the category of so-called BNI platform. So it is quite natural for AIIB to be doing a lot of infrastructure projects with the support of the member countries. We would be very much willing to consider any projects proposed by the member countries. But of course, we have to look at the basic requirements, whether these kind of projects proposed to us would merit the financial support. Basically, first criterion is financial sustainability. We should not do a project which would be loss-making. We will never do a project which would be a white elephant. The second is the support or improvement of the environment. We will be able to finance infrastructure projects without leaving a big footprint in the environment. Instead, we should be able to improve the environment when we promote infrastructure investment, and I can highlight that later on. The third is any project we do in any country, any area, must be embraced by the local people. We will never ever do anything which would create problems for the local community. Thank you.
It's very important. Financial sustainability, environment impact, and the local support. We'll elaborate that later during our session. And the next, I want to turn the microphone to Minister Chan Chun-sing. Singapore is an important gateway to the belt side of the BRI projects. And it's not, what's your view from the perspective of the Singapore as a developed country, as a partner, and also as the financial and technology regional hub?
Singapore welcomes the Belt and Road Initiative. Actually, we see the impact at 3 levels. There's the short-term, medium-term, and a long-term impact. I think the short-term impact is that it's an initiative that connects markets. It facilitates trades. It brings about better quality of living and standards of living for people around the region and across the belt. But that's only the short-term impact. There's actually a more important longer-term, a mid-term impact, which is that, as what the bank governor has said, that it's going to catalyze the local economy. And if this catalytic effect comes about, then there will be a positive feedback loop, not just for the local economy, but also the regional economy and its linkages with China. But I must say that there is a highest order impact, which is even a longer term impact, and this is how it brings about a system of a global economy tightly integrated together, and that will usher in a new era of growth for the entire global community. Singapore is very happy to participate in this project, and I think we have been working very closely with the Chinese agencies According to one Chinese agency, they always remind us of this number, the 3385, which means that 33% of all the outbound investment under the BRI initiative comes through Singapore. And 85% of all the inbound investment to China also comes from Singapore. And the reason that Singapore is able to do this is because we are a financial hub. We are able to syndicate the loans together. So the role that we play will include how we can best help to syndicate the loans, how we provide the legal and financial support, the software aspect of this. And I think we are also closely working with the Chinese agencies to see how we can facilitate the training, the software transfer to the third countries. So I think there's tremendous opportunities for Singapore and China to work together to grow this project.
Thank you. And the next, Chairman of China National Machinery Industry Corp, or Sinomac as we know it, Mr. Ren Hongbin.
Yes.
So please share with us your perspective from Chinese SOEs.
Okay, I'm from China National Machinery Industry Corporation. Thank you very much. I think at this moment, the world we live in today has shown us that the inequality and the instability go hand in hand. And due to lack of proper connectivity to the global economy, many parts of the world has been held back by underdevelopment. And I believe the Belt and Road Initiative is an opportunity to address this issue. At Sinomac, we have made the Belt and Road central of our international strategy. We have completed more than 1,200 projects, overseas projects, across all types of sectors. To date, we have completed or in the process of completing projects in 48 countries along the Belt and Road. And to maximize the returns to all stakeholders, we also collaborated with other leading companies like Siemens and GE along the Belt and Road countries. All working together, we will provide the more reliable access to those countries, the clean, secure, and affordable energy. So, however, working on cross-border projects can sometimes mean a challenge of miscommunication between parties. So I think we need to tell the stories of opportunities that the Belt and Road can provide to the everyday people. So the Belt and Road, I think, is more than just an infrastructure project. It is a crucial engine for building better and more socially inclusive tomorrow. So therefore, I think Belt and Road belongs to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the very interesting number that you have 1,200 projects in 48 countries.
Projects.
It's massive. And also you're echoing what Mr. Jing has highlighted, that you have to understand the local people's need and make sure you tell the stories right. And now we turn to Mr. Michael Burke from US. US is not part of the Belt and Road Initiative yet, but many US companies actually participating in this. So from your perspective, are you participating? And also, if yes, how do you think AECOM, that you are the CEO of, is benefited from BRI?
Sure, well, thank you for allowing me to participate. First of all, we are participating in the Belt Road Initiative in various degrees, but what it means to us and what it means to the region is quite significant. You mentioned the numbers, 80 countries involved, 40% of the GDP of the world touches the Belt and Road Initiative, but more importantly, almost 60% of the world's population falls in those few countries, and many of those countries are less developed and in need of significant development. And the Belt Road Initiative is, without a doubt, the largest infrastructure project in our lifetime. And that project will allow those underdeveloped countries to enhance their development. We've seen all the studies that investments in infrastructure generally have a 2.5 times impact on GDP in the region. By allowing the free movement of goods and eliminating the friction on the economy that naturally happens when you don't have infrastructure to allow goods and people to freely move across that region. But what we recognize is the size and scale of that project cannot be done by any one country, and it cannot be done by the private sector alone or the public sector alone. It's going to require significant collaboration. And that is where AECOM has been involved in collaborating with the state-owned enterprises in various countries around the region to bring their expertise together with our private sector expertise to make sure that we're bringing the best ideas, the best techniques from a financing perspective and from a construction and design perspective to solve this incredible problem that we have, is the inability for goods to move freely around that region. But it is a project that has monumental significance in the region. AECOM has already been participating and collaborating, and we expect to participate for many years to come.
Thank you. You mentioned about collaboration, and we'll touch upon that later. And on the far end, but certainly not the least, Mr. Kirill Dmitriev, and the CEO of Russian Direct Investment Fund, Russia's sovereign wealth fund. So Russia is one of the largest countries along the belt, along the belt on the north. So from your perspective, how do you see international collaborations and how BRI is impacting Russia?
Well, we feel that, fractured world is something that's being discussed in Davos, and One Belt, One Road initiative is probably the best way to address this. And we feel it's one of the probably most important initiatives right now to show connectivity, and President Xi's message of inclusivity contrasts very poignantly with some of the other messages we hear about division and about the fractured world. And we feel that there are several very important layers of this implementation, because the key issue is execution. How can this be implemented? First layer, we feel, is partnerships between countries and also, for example, Eurasia Union, which is sort of partnership between Russia and some of its neighbors. And we believe that Eurasia Union can really be connected to One Belt, One Road initiative, and that's one level. The next level is institutions. And I think it's great that AIB is there, playing a very active role. We also created Russia-China Fund, which is our partnership with China Investment Corporation, partnership with China Development Bank to have renminbi, because we believe that renminbi is also an important part of the equation, and also our investments with Silk Road Fund. And the third layer are projects specifically in the areas of cooperation. And for example, with CIC, we are building the first ever Russia-China bridge. And we couldn't believe the amount of discussions that we've had. Should we have this bridge, not have this bridge? What if Chinese goods start flooding the Russian market? But we overcame this and really made it a very sustainable return project. So it's the first ever bridge, a railway bridge between Russia and China, saving goods 400 kilometers of traveling otherwise. But it's broader than just bridges and railroads. We're also cooperating on technology. And we feel that technological connectivity is important. With Silk Road Fund, we invested in one of the technoparks in Russia. And connectivity between China and Europe through Russia of telecoms and maybe high-speed trains is also important. And the final point I'll make is sustainability of returns. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about later, but there is a big risk in very complex projects like this not to have sustainable returns, but returns have to be sustainable for this really to be a sustainable effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting points, and we'll elaborate on the return part later. But let's come back to Pakistan and use that as one concrete example to understand, once there is such a great need of infrastructure, and once we meet the need of infrastructure, what kind of power that will unleash?
Today, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is basically about infrastructure. We are putting in power plants, highways, railway is being modernized. We have ports are being modernized, airports are being created, and economic zones are being created for export growth. And the results have already started to come in. Our cement industry there's 56% additional capacity being added. Our construction industry grew by 9.1% last year. Our exports are up 15%. So the knock-on effects are already there. And not only that, we are creating greater investor confidence, and there is a lot of investment coming outside the CPEC, where third countries have access to. So it's much more than the infrastructure that you see on the ground. And of course, the key principles are financial sustainability and lessening of the environmental impact. And on both, the CPEC today, I think, is a flag bearer of both financial sustainability and of Pakistan being a more responsible global citizen. Despite all these power plants coming in, and despite some coal plants coming in for the first time into our energy mix, the net effect on the environment will be positive through replacement of older, less efficient oil-based plants.
Very interesting. And also, one question that people often ask is, it's nice to have clean infrastructure, and especially on the clean energy part, but the cost might be higher. So how do you reconcile the needs, the urgency of upgrading the infrastructure, and also the wish to leapfrog and directly jump ahead and have the best facilities there?
That actually has not been our experience, because the efficiency gains more than pay for the additional cost of environment-friendly infrastructure. So actually, like I said, we have a net savings, if you can call it that. So we are, from an environmental point of view, even more sustainable.
Interesting. And another question is, for government-endorsed projects, it has many upsides, including the resource it can garner, including the support it can have, but also people will try to avoid the white elephants that Mr. Jing has just mentioned. How to avoid white elephant in the BRI projects?
First of all, you have to try to find out why or how white elephants were created. And mostly, you will find white elephants were created with the public money. And this is normally the showcase of the politicians to show how great they are. They can do something wonderful. So give you a giant toy only for adults. So this is the problem. I'm not saying the private sector did not make these kind of mistakes, but normally the private sector people would see whether the money they put in would generate resources. So to cure the society of the malaise of giant white elephants, I think it's very much important for us to have a broad consultation before the project is created. For the One Belt and Road project, for instance, President Xi said, broad consultation, joint construction, and shared benefit. So broad consultation is really the key. And if you do not engage the public sector, the private sector, the people, the stakeholders, shareholders, it would be very hard to prevent creating this kind of white elephants. But also, I would say, banks like us, the multilateral development banks, are very careful before we put our resources in any project. So working with us, you are safe. And also, I like to draw your attention to a very critical distinction between white elephant projects and projects which were designed with certain amount of excess capacity. If you complete an infrastructure project and day one, when you start operation, it's full capacity, it's a failure, it's not a success. If you do some infrastructure project with certain amount or appropriate amount of excess capacity, leaving room for expansion. If you build a road with less traffic than designed, probably it's not a big issue because you need time to see the full capacity would be met. So I would like to draw the distinction between white elephant projects and the projects, infrastructure projects, which will leave room for expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Very interesting point. Let us know how to identify a white elephant, and especially not with the excess capacity that it's not white elephant, but let the economy to play the catch up? Or that
certain amount or appropriate amount of excess capacity.
The key is the
If you just say,
amount.
Mr. Chin said excess capacity, oh, I got my points distorted. Please, if we have media here, don't say Mr. Chin said excess capacity is great. You're wrong, okay?
There's a term for it. It's called
Certain
white space.
amount.
Certain amount.
Appropriate amount.
And the key of identifying what's the proper amount is consulting Mr. Chin.
Consulting MDBs.
MDBs, yes. And that's great. And when you mentioned about the engagement of the private sector, especially on the financing, especially on the broad consultation. So I want to turn that to Mr. Chan. And from your experience, how to engage the private sector, especially for the small and medium-sized companies?
Actually, in Singapore, we have done quite a number of projects with China over the many years. We had the Suzhou Industrial Park in the 1990s. Then we have the Tianjin Eco-City in the 2000s. And most recently, we have the Chongqing Connectivity Initiative, which I'm responsible for. But I think throughout all these projects, there are a few principles that we always adhere to. And like what was mentioned, I think the first thing is really to understand the ground needs, be it in China or in other countries. And the needs, even in China, evolves with time. When we first participated in the Suzhou Industrial Project in 1990s, I think what China needed at that point in time was industrial parks. It was the first industrial park, partnering a foreign partner to manage the park. At a point in time, there was also a lack of confidence in the future of China economy. So we went in, we built the industrial park, and today it's replicated all across China in different forms. But by the year 2000, China has gone on to the next phase of development. We were talking about sustainable development, and the concern about sustainability ecosystems came to the forefront. And we too in Singapore has to evolve our method of working with China to bring it to a new level, which was why we built the Tianjin Eco-City from the salt marshes, which is actually quite a different project from anything else we have done in the rest of the world. And we fast forward to the year 2010 and beyond, and we realized that actually China has also gone past that stage whereby China has its own domestic capabilities to talk about eco-sustainable development. And at this point in time, for the third project, we asked ourselves, together with our Chinese partner, what is the problem definition? What is the challenge that we are facing? And the problem definition that we come up with together with the Chinese officials, both at the central and at the local level, was this. In China, the development was rather unbalanced with a heavy emphasis on the coastal area. The question was, how can we unleash the potential of Western China, which has 2/3 the land area, but 1/3 the population? How can we bring down the logistic and financial costs to bring real benefits to the companies so that we can catalyze their development? So neither the Chinese government nor the Singapore government will be there to pick what we call the winners or the losers. We are there to provide the substrate to catalyze the industries to take place. And that's why we work very hard to make sure that we can bring down the financing costs and the logistic costs. And it was also on this basis, working closely with the private partnership, we started what we call the Southern Transport Corridor to open up a new strategic line of comms from Western China out to the South China Sea via a north-south route rather than the traditional east-west route that goes through the Changjiang, and which has the Three Gorges Dam as one of the choke points, and finally to Shanghai. And with that, we are able to drastically bring down the logistic costs. So this is an example of how we adhere to the market principles, speak to the local people, understand their needs, and have tangible projects that bring about real benefits, rather than to build projects in a vacuum. So if we adhere to these principles of making sure that we understand the local ground needs, talk to the local people, have tangible results to benefit and catalyze the local economy, I think we won't go very long. Yeah. So if we adhere to these same principles when we go outside China to work on third country projects, I think it is the same, be it in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka, in Africa, or anywhere else. We want not just to connect the local economies to the Chinese economy or the global economy, but we also want to catalyze the local economy to the wider economy. So I think if we continue down this path, we'll be all right.
Thank you. It's very important to understand the local needs and also bring the tangible results. And part of that, to engage the private sector, as you mentioned, is to let them see the real returns. And how to ensure the real returns? I want to hear from Kirill.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, first of all, I think there will be many projects that have very attractive returns. And if you look at some of the numbers, Belt and Road Initiative has 40% of the world population, 16% on the world GDP, only 12.5% of the world e-commerce. So there is huge opportunity to grow e-commerce, grow GDP. So lots of projects will be having attractive return. Now, the real question is, what about projects with low return? Because we know that infrastructure, some projects have low return or even loss-making. And we believe really two things are important. It's co-investment, and then government really giving sufficient capital grants to make sure that investors get at least a minimal rate of return for projects that are not necessarily positive returns themselves. And why we believe co-investment is important. We are co-investing with the largest sovereign wealth funds of the world, and we feel that combining expertise and putting some of the private money in an infrastructure project is very important. It helps control costs, it helps avoid mistakes, it really makes things very practical. So co-investment is absolutely critical. Now, for those projects that, for example, have negative returns, can you bring private money there? It seems no, but the answer is yes. And we discussed this during G20 infrastructure initiative. And basically, government needs to give sufficient capital grant, free money, so that investors can make their returns. Investors would compete, and the returns will not be that significant. But that allows you to bring private capital into pretty much any infrastructure project. And we believe this is very important for sustainable returns, because if there are mistakes and money is lost, it will undermine the credibility of Belt and Road Initiative. So sustainability of returns is absolutely key, and we believe it can be done through active co-investment with private investors.
And AIIB actually does a lot of co-invest. And how do you ensure the return for that, Mr. Xing?
If you look at the project, you have to look at two levels. One is more micro, the other is certainly macro. So if the project is good in and of itself, in terms of design, implementation, completion on schedule, certainly it's very good. But does not mean that project will be a success if you don't look at a macro situation. That is why when we help the developing countries identify some projects, we want to draw their attention to the broader perspective. We support lots of projects in Pakistan, and power generation, transmission, developing power grids, and also you develop a port, you have to make sure upgrading or building new railroads or roads would all be coordinated. Otherwise, the project, which will be waiting for other projects to support it. That's why to achieve very high returns of the project, you should look at both sides, which is very much important. Otherwise, a good project will be waiting to produce, but without the supporting factors, you'll still be loss-making probably. Yeah.
Thank you. And now let's turn to the companies that are actually implementing these projects. And I want to ask Mr. Ren about it. You are involved in more than 1,000 projects around the world. Have Chinese companies' practices, how that improved throughout the years?
Well, when we talk about the practices, even sometimes we're talking about the standards, I think one thing is for sure, that is values will decide the success of a project. So let me take our collaboration with the local community in Lapland, Finland, to build a next generation biorefinery as an example to answer this question. We are working together with the local community to create 8 innovative bioproducts. So our work will fully respect the unique biodiversity of the region. And this will help the local people contribute to national and European-wide development goals, including the EU's bioeconomy strategy. So our work here is not only about mitigating climate change. It is mainly about meeting the people's ever-growing needs for a better life. So implementing the Belt and Road will go a long way towards creating more caring, more equal, and more human world. Thank you.
Thanks. And that understanding the local needs is part of the raised standard for your projects and investment overseas. And I want to turn this to Mike. Mr. Then elaborated on the positive side. And you invest and work extensively overseas as well. What are the common hurdles you would generally encounter, or you have to bear that in mind?
The common hurdles. How much time do we have?
2 minutes.
Listen, the hurdles are wide and varied in implementing infrastructure projects, and they range from the regulatory environments around environmental issues, around permitting, around taxation, bringing all the local stakeholders together. All of these obstacles are present in so many varied forms in so many different countries. And when you look at the implementation of an infrastructure project, there are enough uncertainties with respect to the revenue risk on the project at the end of the day, the technical risk, the construction risk. There's enough uncertainties. And what we're always encouraging countries and political leaders to do is to take as much uncertainty off the table as you can as it relates to the regulatory environment and the tax environment. We talk to clients about investing in new projects where they're faced with a certain tax regulation that may or may not change. And when we're talking about a 30-year project, we need certainty of the regulatory environment because, as I said, there's plenty of other uncertainties. And so one of the great fortunes that we have had is AECOM operates on projects in 150 countries. And so we've seen enough of these obstacles and are prepared to deal with many of them. And so what we have found is that collaborating with the state-owned enterprises, and we work together with state-owned enterprises on projects all around the world, and many of them have extraordinary capabilities of building infrastructure projects in their own countries. But when they go into a new country, they need some collaboration and some partnering from organizations like ours that maybe have dealt with some of these before. And so it's that collaboration, and to the point that you made earlier, of bringing the private sector together so that we are knowledge sharing and bringing the best practices together is going to help us implement more of these projects through the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes, Kira, please.
Yes, and just one quick addition. I think very important to have a very strong local partner. Because we, for example, have 15 sovereign wealth funds who are partners in different jurisdictions. We cannot imagine investing in those countries without them being our partners. So I think having local partners, they can solve lots of issues, and I welcome, for example, creation of Pakistani sovereign wealth fund. I heard that it's going to be created soon. I think, for us to invest additionally in Pakistan, having a partner like this would be very helpful. So local partner is absolutely critical.
So local partners and take the uncertainties off the table. Mr. Prime Minister, what's your response to that?
I think it's important that we ensure that these projects don't create distortions. So they should be inclusive, they should be available to all investors. Of course, there are bilateral constraints that are there, but they should be available to all investors with the same level playing field that is available to the local players. We must also ensure compliance with the standards, and we must be cognizant of, I fully appreciate the comments about white elephants. And hopefully what may seem like a wild elephant today, through the synergies that are created through the BRI and the connectivity issues, I think over a life cycle cost and through replacement of inefficiencies, those wild elephants probably will turn out to be more efficient utilization of resources. But yes, it is very critical to be aware of the white elephants. Governments are known for non-optimal utilization of resources, and that's something that the projects have to guard against. And that's something that we are very cognizant of, that the projects have to be financially sustainable and contribute to the environment.
Yes, very important. And if I can turn from a slightly the discussion on the hard side of the BRI projects, which is more focusing on the players and the financing and the feasibility of the projects, turn to slightly the soft side, that is the governance, the standard, and also the transparency involved in that. What kind of complementary policies you think countries should have to make these projects really taking roots?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question on how countries can work together. For example, Pakistan, through its port development and highway development and rail development, can probably provide much more efficient connectivity to most of Central Asia, which is landlocked. So through complementary policies, I think, and a greater utilization of the resource or the project that is created, of course, taking into consideration that we do need some extra space to be left over, I think the complementarities will create much greater financial sustainability for the projects.
Singapore actually, just like Mr. Chen elaborated, does a lot of projects regionally, and with China as a very good example. So when you build projects, what institutions or systems you're looking for? What's your checklist? And how to avoid sounding condescending when you are working with the local partners?
I think there are 3 levels that we can talk about in this aspect of the softer side of it. I think the lowest level of competence is that every commercial project must be commercially viable. So that is taken as a given. We must have that discipline so that we do not end up losing the confidence of the public in the investment of such projects. So, but that is the short-term effect. The second order and higher order effect is that whether it brings about real benefits to the local community. Does it catalyze the local community? I think we have seen across the world there are many projects done by foreign countries in a third country whereby everything is brought in from the outside. But after the foreign party leaves, is the local partner able to sustain that project? And that's what we mean by catalytic effect, that you are able to catalyze the local community, the actions, and there's a software transfer. So I think the test of the pudding is not when the foreign partner is there. The test of the pudding is really when the foreign partner is no longer there. Is the local community able to seize those opportunities and to build upon it? So that is the second order effect. But I think the highest order of effect that we try to achieve is that now China is actually at the cusp of history. With China's growth, there's tremendous opportunity for China to do good for the rest of the world. I can understand, and I've heard theories where people are afraid, hesitant about China's growth. But this is an important historical opportunity for China to convince the rest of the world that actually its actions has a broader perspective of not just immediate commercial gains to itself or just to try to catalyze the local economy to a certain extent in the medium term, but more importantly, over the longer term, China is helping the world to build a better system that allows the world to participate in the next phase of growth for the world economy. And if China is able to use its power, use its capacity to catalyze this, it will win the trust and confidence of the world. I think the Chinese have a very simple phrase to say that, yi de fu ren, to use your benevolence to bring about that global community. And I think that's what President Xi spoke about last year at Davos here, whereby we talk about a common destiny for mankind. For those countries with great powers, great resources, they have great responsibilities to bring the world along and build the system for the world to thrive. And I think this will be a tremendous opportunity for China to show the world the kind of power that it wants to be. It is an inclusive one, it's a forward-looking one, it's one that brings everyone along. So I think to me that is the greatest gain for China in terms of winning the soft aspect of all this Belt and Road project.
Very interesting.
I think,
Yes.
I think a very important point has been raised here about developing local capability.
Yes.
So projects must contribute to that. It's not only that the foreign companies come in, they develop the project and they leave. So local capability is very critical to the whole experience. And over the last 5 years, we have witnessed that in Pakistan, where we did not have, for example, a major contractor who could build motorways. But with working with Chinese companies over the last 5 years, we now have several contractors who independently are bidding and delivering quality motorways. So this synergy is again very, very critical to developing the BRI and the projects within that.
Cultivating local capacity, and part of that is technology transfer. So from the company perspective, how can you do that? Are you doing that, Mike?
You know, we've been doing that for quite some time. Our business is based on building sustainable operating businesses in each of the countries and cities in which we operate, because we believe over time it's much more effective to have a team on the ground with a basic fundamental understanding of what we do versus the flying in, delivering the project and flying back out. So we've been focused on two types of knowledge transfer. We call it soft transfer and hard transfer. On the soft transfer side is helping with the management of these large projects, not just the technical capabilities, but also we focus on the hard knowledge, the technical transfer, to make sure that we are collaborating within our organization through our 90,000 employees around the world and bringing the best technical expertise to that project and leaving that technical expertise behind. But the technical expertise is not enough. You have to transfer the soft knowledge of managing the projects and all of the other obstacles that we talked about just a moment ago. It's equally important to focus on all of those obstacles and managing through them as it is to providing the best technical solution to the project.
If I may just
Yes,
add,
please.
in the example of the Suzhou Industrial Park, when we first worked with China many years ago in the 1990s, I think what most people would see is the physical industrial park, that so many acres of land with buildings and so forth. But actually, what was most important was what went behind the scene. The number of delegations that came to Singapore to look at the system, the management culture, the number of delegations that Singapore sent to Suzhou Industrial Park to help build that culture. I think those are the intangibles that are perhaps even more important than the physical park itself. The physical park itself, I think we can replicate it quite easily with standards to be proliferated. But the software requires time. It requires time, it requires commitment, it requires energy to see through that cultural change to bring it to the next level. And once we have that software transfer, then it's really on its own engine, it's on its own steam. It can catalyze even more projects in China and beyond.
Thank you. And
So from the practice of ours, I would like to add something. So we live and work by our values, and one of such value is to invest our workforce. So I do agree with Mr. Prime Minister said. We could not just complete the project and go away. So what we did for the last couple of years, so we just train our local people. I mean, we employ them and train them to high standards. And we transfer our know-how, our knowledges to them. So they and their community can grow further. And I believe they are the future of their country, of the world, and the world. The power of one project is limited, but the power of people is unlimited. So we are looking for the long-term stakeholders' engagement for any projects of ours.
very important. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions from the floor, but let me just quickly ask one question before opening up the floor. Protectionism, because in Davos here, we talk a lot about protectionism. Currently, most of the BRI projects are still in the developing countries. But eventually, that will move into the developed world. Is protectionism your concern, Mr. Jing?
Protectionism is a kind of reality you have to live with. But I think when we promote the connectivity projects, infrastructure projects, which can bring people together with a shared benefit, I think there will be less and less market for protectionism. So sometimes if the benefits of the globalized economy, the benefits of this connectivity, integrated economy is not shared equitably, protectionism would raise its ugly head. So we are very much careful about the impact of the infrastructure projects, which will be good for not just the developing countries in the Belt Road area, but also for the major developed countries. Give you one example. For instance, when we are promoting the connectivity projects in Eurasia, bringing Europe and Asia together, creating huge market for many companies in European countries. This is also very much good for the American companies. I see, even the United States is not a member of our bank, we still engage in American financial institutions and manufacturing. So Belt Road Initiative and also the investment done by the multilateral development institutions. We co-finance with the World Bank, we co-finance with ADB. All this would create a huge market. So this, in my view, is likely to ease the concerns on the part of some of the people. But I want to highlight one point. Please look at the connectivity projects as a public good. It's not simply a project for your own country. And if you design a project, a road, a railway, a port, as a global public good, that would cut the costs of shipping, transportation, transaction. This is good for everybody. So in this regard, regulatory coordination, macro policy coordination is very much important. So as long as we can go forward along this line, we can maximize the positive externality involving all of the participating countries. I believe in the next stage of globalized economy and regional and global cooperation, we should pay more attention to share the benefits as President Xi highlighted. And that, I would say, probably would ease the concern of some of the people and would mitigate the concerns of some people who are worried about their own benefit. So it's very much important, as I said, highlight this point. We are building public goods and public services. We need regulatory coordination, thereby enhancing shared benefits.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, very briefly, I think Bob Schiller, who is here in Davos, has this great story about storytelling. So storytelling is becoming very important. And I think to fight protectionism, it's very important to have very good storytelling about the benefits of the projects. For example, Vladivostok, we invested with Changi in Vladivostok Airport. So we bring in expertise from Singapore. It's good for Russia Far East. It's good for China. It's good for tourism. So the storytelling and showing good pictures of projects is very important to fight protectionism.
Very important. Mr. Premier.
Just one sentence. By definition, connectivity and protectionism are in contradiction with each other. Yeah. So when reliance increases, inherently protectionism will be reduced. So that's how we look at it.
Fantastic. So now we have about 7 minutes to open up to the floor. So if you have a question, raise your hand and please keep your question short. This gentleman here, please. The mic is coming.
We can hear you, I mean.
Thank you. My name is Wouter van Noort. I'm a journalist from Holland. We've been talking about the Eastern impact a lot today. I'm also wondering how you assess the European contribution to the Belt and Road Initiative. And looking forward, how do you assess closer Eurasian cooperation geopolitically in the long term? And especially I'm curious about Mr. Chan Chong-Singh's opinion on this and Mr. Dimitriev's.
So who will take you first? Kyrio or Mr. Chan?
Well, I'll just say one quick thing. I think, Russia really wants to be a positive actor in the world, and I think its position geographically between China and Europe can be used very positively. So frankly, we believe in Eurasia Union and Belt Road Initiative integration. We believe that lots of things can connect Europe and China through Russia, and we believe that would be a very positive thing to ease some of the tensions that obviously exist.
For us, I think we believe in an open system. Our perspective is that the more the countries connect with each other, the more interdependencies that we create, the smaller the chances of conflict. And we should move beyond the perspective of a zero-sum game, because I think what we are embarked on in this together, it is a global project. If we can unleash the potential of the European and the Asian community together and to create even more interdependencies, I think it will bode well for everyone. So I'm optimistic, and I would strongly encourage the greater connectivity, the greater connections across both regions.
Thank you. And the gentleman here.
Good morning. Thank you for such informative presentation. My name is Khadim Al-Darai. I'm from United Arab Emirates. My question to our colleagues from China, how other countries such UAE and the GCC could benefit out and get advantage of such logistic corridor that definitely will shaping the future of trade globally?
Maybe Mr. Jing first.
Me? You see, when we develop infrastructure projects, certainly we look at this with the broader perspective. We want to improve the logistics. And talking about our bank, we support the infrastructure projects in the Middle East countries. You see, our bank has a policy which is different from those well-established ones. We don't have Part 1, Part 2 countries. Any member of the bank could have access to the financing from our institution. So we are actually working in the Gulf countries to support the infrastructure projects, which would definitely help with your countries in improving the logistics and help them diversify away from excessive dependence on the traditional sectors. That's why we have the advantage of being able to work in the so-called high-income or high-middle-income countries. So we are very much keen. As you know, we have already financed a project in Oman, and I discussed the infrastructure projects like railways with some of the countries. So that will greatly help with the economy in the Gulf areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we probably have time for the lady over here, one last question.
Thanks very much. I'm Jennifer Morgan. I'm Executive Director from Greenpeace International. And just wanted to draw a little bit on the different standards questions. We know that there's statements from Chinese leadership that it should be a low-carbon, green connective initiative. Curious how you think you can avoid going to a minimum standard when there's different standards in different countries on the environment, despite countries signing up for the Paris Agreement. Thank you.
And who you want to answer the question?
Anyone who is up for it.
Let me pick the question.
Yes, I thought you might. Thank you.
Let me try to answer the question, because at least I'm a Chinese national, right? Even though I'm working in the international institution. If you look at the ideas of the Chinese government in promoting global regional integration through infrastructure investment, and if you look at the policies and the measures adopted by the Chinese government, you can see they are really ramping up their efforts to set the bar very high. For instance, the Chinese Development Bank and also Exim Bank, they used to make a lot of loans outside, normally trying to meet the needs of the borrowing countries. But now, I think there's more discussion about the standards, the so-called environmental protection, resettlement, the human rights. The Chinese development banks would not simply give you the money regardless of the consequences of those investments. So you see, it's really, I think, they are moving really on a very steep curve, improving. We have Mr. Ren here, And when you invest outside, to my knowledge, you also set a very high bar.
That's right.
You will not simply give them some money because they need the money, they want to do something, you do it. I think that we have a fundamental change in the conceptualization of the investment projects in those countries. Likewise, when the Chinese leader initiated the creation of this bank, it's very clear we must operate by the international standards, and we must take care of environmental protection. We must take care of the local people. We will not create problems for the people who would otherwise be adversely affected by these infrastructure projects. So you see, this kind of dialogue is very much important. And I would say setting a high bar is vitally important for the credibility of Belt and Road Initiative. Thank you.
That's right.
Do you have anything to compliment, Mr.?
Okay, we have lots of practices working cross-border projects. First of all, we have to follow the host country's standards, their rules. And if any possible, we will raise the standard. So we have to follow, even for those kind of standard, we have to follow the high standard. Sometimes the financial institutions like AIB, they also ask the contractors must follow a high standard to maintain the green and the sustainable growth for the host countries.
Very important, raise the bar very high. So before we close this session, I want to ask each of our panelists to use, probably because we're running out of time, one word or one phrase to share with us what's the most important thing you think that will help BRI projects to win trust, confidence, and support locally, and to echo the theme, to make BRI really part of shared dream. One word or one phrase. Let's start with Prime Minister.
I would say jobs.
Jobs.
Yeah.
Mr. Jing?
A continued broad-based consultation before we do anything.
Continued broad-based
consultation before we do anything.
And Mr. Chan?
I think I will share the story of don't just see this as building a port, because there are three ways to see what you mean by building a port. You can see it as building a port to enhance the connectivity for trade. You can see the building of port as a catalyst for the local economy. But most importantly, we can see the building of a port as China's commitment to build a global system of connectivity, the global commons, the common infrastructure that we talk about.
The story behind the story.
Which is that if we are just focused on the short term, the here and now, then I think we might miss the picture. It is just like the bricklayer. Is he laying a brick, or is he building a wall, or is he building a cathedral? And I think the Chinese leadership have the wisdom to know which level of aspirations they are going for.
Thank you. And Mr. Deng?
I would like to say just one key word. That is for all our contractors, sustainable social lessons. That will be very important.
Sustainable social
lessons.
Yeah. Very important. Mike?
The key to success in 2 words, global collaboration.
Global collaboration. And Kyo, you have the last word.
Yeah. Signature projects and storytelling.
Signature projects and storytelling. With that, please join me in thanking all my wonderful panelists for this wonderful sharing. Thank you. And thanks for watching Caixin Debate.
It is my great honor.
J'ai l'honneur, l'immense honneur d'accueillir son Excellence Liu, membre nouvellement élu du Politburo, du comité central de la Chine populaire et aussi chargé du groupe pour les affaires financières et économiques. L'année 2018 marque le 40e anniversaire de l'ouverture de la Chine et de sa politique de réforme. Votre Excellence, avec votre présence parmi nous, eh bien, nous célébrons également une sorte de jubilé. En effet, celle-ci marque la 40e année consécutive pour laquelle j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir le leadership de la Chine à notre réunion annuelle du Forum de Davos. Et j'aimerais vous remercier, j'aimerais remercier le gouvernement chinois, les chefs d'entreprise chinois, pour le très fort partenariat que nous avons établi au cours des 4 dernières décennies. Comme vous le savez tous, l'UE a été un conseiller économique éminent au président Xi Jinping et il a joué un rôle essentiel à l'heure de rédiger certaines des grandes politiques économiques chinoises. C'est par conséquent un immense privilège pour nous que d'avoir cette opportunité unique, que d'entendre de sa bouche les éléments sur le futur développement de la Chine, ses priorités économiques et puis aussi votre perspective sur l'économie mondiale. Notre communauté du Forum se rappellera sans aucun doute le discours historique du président Xi Jinping en janvier dernier, discours qui pour de nombreux participants est apparu comme un moment charnière dans les relations qu'entretient la Chine avec le reste du monde. Au cours de l'année, il y a eu d'autres grandes réunions mondiales très importantes, comme par exemple le Forum sur la route de la soie, le G20, la PEC, etc. Et le président Xi Jinping a continué à présenter de nouveaux points qu'il avait évoqués dans son discours de Davos. Le tout culminant dans ses remarques au 19e congrès du parti, lors duquel il a énoncé sa grande vision pour la nouvelle ère chinoise. La Chine nous impressionne une fois de plus avec son taux de croissance très solide de 6,9% en 2017. Toutefois, les changements qui s'annoncent pour la Chine et pour son économie ne peuvent être sous-estimés. En effet, la Chine passe d'un mix de secteurs industriels différents et en même temps investit dans le développement de nouvelles technologies afin de devenir un leader en la matière et de créer aussi les industries de l'avenir. Et ce étant pour faire un pas géant en avant. L'avenir de la Chine est intrinsèquement lié au destin de l'économie mondiale, qui est marqué de plus en plus, malheureusement, par le protectionnisme et également par la menace des barrières commerciales. Je suis par conséquent particulièrement heureux et reconnaissant de vous avoir ici parmi nous, Monsieur Liu Ye, après la présentation du président Xi Jinping l'année dernière, afin d'entendre votre point de vue, de voir ce qui a changé, si quelque chose a changé, et aussi ce que nous réserve l'avenir. Je vous invite à prendre la parole.
Cher Monsieur Klaus Schwab, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, chers amis, bonjour. Permettez-moi de commencer en remerciant le Dr Schwab de m'avoir invité au forum. Le président Xi Jinping est venu ici et il a donné un discours sur la promotion de la croissance mondiale. Discours durant lequel il a parlé du soutien robuste qu'apporte la Chine à la mondialisation. Ce discours a été accueilli chaleureusement par la communauté internationale. Or, cette dernière année, sur la base des propositions émises par le président Xi, la Chine a résisté à toute tendance au protectionnisme. Nous avons promu la concurrence loyale, protégé la propriété intellectuelle, élargi l'accès à nos marchés, tout en prenant l'initiative d'étendre les exportations. Dans le cadre de la nouvelle route de la soie, nous faisons avancer la mondialisation avec des actions très concrètes. Le Dr Schwab m'a demandé de parler du 19e congrès du Parti communiste chinois et de la politique économique de la Chine ces prochaines années. Je vais donc faire les observations suivantes. Le 19e congrès du Parti a établi un nouveau leadership central pour la Chine avec le président Xi Jinping en son centre. Une politique ou un socialisme caractéristique chinois était à son cœur. Il s'agit de créer une société modérément prospère dans tous ses aspects d'ici 2020 et de faire de la Chine un grand pays socialiste, ce en 2 étapes, d'ici 2050. Cela a esquissé également les directions suivies par la politique économique de la Chine ces prochaines années. Le rapport du 19e congrès du Parti est, à mon sens, un programme politique en toute transparence. Il esquisse les promesses qui seront remplies vis-à-vis de la population chinoise. La mise en œuvre de ce programme offrira de nouvelles opportunités de croissance économique à d'autres pays du monde. Aussi, mesdames et messieurs, je recommande la lecture de ce rapport à ceux d'entre vous qui souhaitaient en savoir plus sur la Chine et sur sa politique économique à venir. Cette planification de la croissance économique ou de la politique économique de la Chine est sous-tendue par un certain nombre d'objectifs. Cette politique se concentre sur les besoins essentiels, des tâches principales et 3 luttes majeures. Laissez-moi les expliquer les unes après les autres. Le besoin essentiel, c'est que l'économie de la Chine est passée d'une phase de croissance rapide à une phase de croissance qualitative. Et c'est dans ce contexte que la Chine formule ses réformes structurelles macroéconomiques et ses politiques sociales pour les prochaines années. Cette transition fait partie intégrante des causes du développement économique. Le revenu par habitant de la Chine est passé de $800 à $10 000, voire plus. Plutôt de $8 000 à plus de $10 000. À un tel stade de développement, la Chine doit mettre davantage l'accent sur les améliorations structurelles plutôt que sur des améliorations quantitatives. Nous devons nous concentrer sur la qualité plutôt que la quantité. Alors que nous nous ouvrons davantage au monde extérieur, cette transition vers un nouveau modèle de développement va créer de nouveaux débouchés pour l'industrie, pour de nouveaux types d'industries. Ceci pourrait comprendre l'industrie manufacturière, l'industrie des services, pour une plus grande consommation, ainsi que des bâtiments moins gourmands en énergie, des modes de transport plus intelligents et des industries plus vertes, moins gourmandes en carbone. Ceci implique de nouveaux débouchés pour les entreprises, non seulement en Chine, mais également de par le monde. L'effet domino sur d'autres secteurs de l'industrie sera d'autant plus grand puisqu'il s'agit de moderniser toute l'économie. Ceci peut impliquer des centaines, voire des milliers d'industries et de produits. En fait, les changements ont déjà lieu. Notre demande nationale a augmenté avec la consommation contribuant à 58,8% à la croissance du pays, à la croissance économique du pays, soit 4% de plus qu'il y a 3 ans. La valeur ajoutée du secteur des services représente 60% du PIB, soit 5% de plus qu'il y a 3 ans, 5 ans. Avec plus de migrants ruraux qui s'installent dans les villes, les résidences permanentes urbaines ont augmenté de plus de 80 millions pour représenter 58,52% de la population, soit 6% de plus qu'il y a 3 ans. Dans l'intervalle, l'intensité énergétique de la Chine, soit une mesure de l'énergie par unité de PIB, a chuté de 23,9%. Notre tâche essentielle, c'est d'avancer les réformes structurelles du côté de l'offre. La contradiction principale dans le développement économique de la Chine, c'est que du côté de notre offre n'évolue pas à la même vitesse que la demande, ce qui doit être réglé rapidement. Pour améliorer la qualité de l'offre par la réforme, c'est ce qui nous permettra d'atteindre un développement de bonne qualité. Notre priorité à l'heure actuelle, c'est de supprimer les surcapacités lorsque cela est nécessaire, de réduire les inventaires en matière de logement, de réduire le taux d'endettement, tout en renforçant les maillons les plus faibles de l'économie, que ce soit les services publics, l'infrastructure ainsi que les institutions. Grâce à ces mesures, nous espérons faire en sorte que l'offre soit plus adaptable et plus innovante. Certaines avancées initiales ont déjà pu être enregistrées. Et en effet, depuis 2016, nous avons supprimé plus de 115 millions de tonnes de capacité en matière d'acier, éliminé 140 millions de tonnes de capacité en matière d'acier de mauvaise qualité et réduit nos capacités en matière de charbon de 500 millions de tonnes. Nous avons ajusté l'offre et la demande, ce qui aboutit à des augmentations de prix dans certains secteurs. La croissance de la productivité a commencé à augmenter en 2016. L'effet domino de ces réformes structurelles se fait sentir dans le monde. On le voit dans le prix des matières premières. Or, c'est une réforme que nous devons poursuivre et embrasser pleinement. Les 3 luttes principales dans lesquelles s'engage la Chine sont tout d'abord de réduire les risques majeurs, de lutter contre la pauvreté et de lutter contre la pollution. En effet, nous savons que si un seau doit contenir de l'eau, sa planche la plus courte doit être rallongée. Or, la Chine souhaite avoir une société prospère dans tous ces aspects. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous devons augmenter la taille de cette planche. Nous devons donc réduire les risques majeurs présents dans l'économie chinoise. Tout d'abord, les risques financiers, le shadow banking, les dettes cachées pour les gouvernements locaux sont des problèmes sérieux qu'il nous faut résoudre. Nous continuerons de progresser tout en maintenant une certaine stabilité. D'ici 3 ans, nous aspirons à faire en sorte que le taux d'endettement soit, ou le ratio de dette par rapport aux capitaux empruntés soit réduite pour servir l'économie réelle. Nous souhaitons également prévenir les risques systémiques tout en facilitant les flux d'activité économique. La communauté internationale suit ce que nous faisons avec attention. Or, nous sommes certains que nous y arriverons, car nous avons mis en place un projet à cet effet. Notre but, c'est de régler les problèmes à venir par le biais de la réforme et par le biais du développement. Notre tactique est de faire en sorte d'identifier les problèmes les plus importants pour pouvoir les résoudre. Nous avons de notre côté un certain nombre de conditions favorables. En effet, l'économie chinoise va plutôt bien, avec des fondamentaux très robustes et durables. Pourtant, un potentiel reste inexploité. Il s'agit là de l'urbanisation, de l'innovation et de la transformation de nos industries traditionnelles. Il s'agit là de possibilités qui s'offrent à nous. Notre système financier est plutôt robuste, avec un fort taux d'épargne. Nous souhaitons gérer les risques. Or, depuis le troisième trimestre de l'an dernier, la Chine a vu un taux d'endettement, un taux de dette par rapport à ses capitaux empruntés moins important. Conscience des risques est une garantie. Alors, cela crée des conditions psychologiques favorables qui nous permettent de prévenir et de contrôler les risques financiers. J'aimerais souligner que les risques financiers chinois et notre réaction à ces risques est liée étroitement à l'environnement des marchés mondiaux. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous accueillons favorablement la participation et la coopération de la communauté internationale dans cette aspiration de la Chine que de mitiger ces risques. En effet, cela s'inscrit dans un effort mondial en matière économique. Deuxièmement, la Chine va poursuivre ses efforts plus ciblés pour réduire la pauvreté. Ces 5 dernières années, sous le leadership du président Xi Jinping, nous avons lancé des campagnes dans le but de lutter contre la pauvreté. Par conséquent, le nombre de personnes vivant dans les zones rurales dans la pauvreté est passé de 100 millions à 30 millions en 5 ans, ce qui est un chiffre énorme. Nous nous sommes fixés un objectif qui est d'éliminer la pauvreté absolue d'ici 3 ans. Il s'agira que plus aucun habitant rural ne vive sous le seuil de pauvreté. Or, cette année, la Chine fera en sorte que 10 millions de ses habitants sortent de la pauvreté absolue, dont 2,8 millions qui déménageront de lieux dans lesquels ils vivent dans des conditions très difficiles. Ces efforts de lutte contre la pauvreté ont un impact énorme sur la distribution des richesses nationales. Or, de tels efforts incarnent l'approche de la Chine en matière de droits humains et contribuera à la réduction de la pauvreté, qui est une cause mondiale. Troisièmement, la Chine va poursuivre sa lutte contre la pollution. Le développement vert et sans carbone, c'est ce que la population chinoise et la population mondiale souhaitent voir le plus, ce qui est en rupture avec les modèles de croissance traditionnels. Ces 3 prochaines années, la Chine va intensifier ses efforts de lutte contre la pollution pour réduire ses émissions de polluants les plus importants, tout en réduisant la consommation de matières premières. De tels efforts ont pour but d'améliorer l'environnement, de rendre l'environnement plus écologique et de rendre nos ciels plus bleus. Voici des mesures tout à fait concrètes que prendra la Chine pour remplir sa promesse en matière de lutte contre la pollution et pour remplir son engagement dans le cadre de l'accord de Paris. La Chine souhaite travailler plus étroitement avec le reste de la communauté internationale dans ce domaine. Mesdames et messieurs, il ne fait aucun doute que pour atteindre les objectifs que je viens d'esquisser, la Chine doit continuer les réformes à un rythme très soutenu, comme l'a mentionné le Dr Schwab. Nous continuerons de réformer et d'ouvrir la Chine. Cette politique est la raison de la croissance économique robuste de la Chine ces dernières décennies et restera le moteur principal de la croissance qualitative de la Chine ces prochaines années. La Chine permettra au marché de jouer un rôle majeur. Nous devons nous concentrer sur la protection de la propriété intellectuelle. Nous motiverons les entrepreneurs en encourageant la concurrence, en luttant contre les monopoles. Nous ferons en sorte de réglementer la macroéconomie. Nous ouvrirons nos frontières en intégrant la réglementation commerciale internationale, tout en ouvrant le secteur des services, notamment celui des services financiers, tout en créant un environnement plus propice aux investissements. Nous pensons que pour qu'il y ait croissance économique durable, il doit y avoir des arrangements institutionnels qui font sens. Or, nous encouragerons les investissements vers l'intérieur, mais également vers l'extérieur, alors que nous encouragerons les interactions commerciales avec d'autres pays pour œuvrer ensemble à une économie plus ouverte. Après des décennies de croissance, une classe moyenne prospère a émergé en Chine. Une classe moyenne de 400 millions d'habitants qui contribuera très largement au développement mondial. La nouvelle route de la soie est une initiative qui provient de Chine, mais c'est une idée qui offrira des débouchés et des avantages au monde entier, avec une plus grande connectivité entre les habitants qui généreront la demande au niveau mondial, tout en permettant à l'économie de se retourner. Mesdames et messieurs, le thème du forum cette année, à savoir créer un avenir partagé dans un monde en fracture, est un thème qui est très pertinent. L'économie mondiale est en train de se remettre. Les économies majeures sont en train de croître, ce pour la première fois depuis la crise financière. Les échanges commerciaux, les investissements sont en train de reprendre. Et je pense que les perspectives sont plus florissantes. À ce stade, qui est critique, nous devons penser à l'effet domino des politiques monétaires des économies les plus importantes dans le monde, ainsi que des changements sur les marchés, notamment les marchés des matières premières à court terme. À moyen terme, nous devons faire attention à la productivité et au taux d'intérêt sur l'épargne dans les économies importantes. Des problèmes bien ancrés dans l'économie doivent toutefois être réglés. Il y a notamment la question du protectionnisme, des bulles spéculatives, des hotspots. Pour relever ces défis, pour miser sur la croissance, pour la rendre plus durable, il nous faut des efforts concertés sur le plan international. Dans l'histoire des progrès humains, il y a une chose qui apparaît très clairement. En effet, l'histoire se répète de manière différente au fil du temps. Elle revisite ces moments charnières. Il est donc essentiel de faire des choix rationnels et prudents, des choix qui serviront l'humanité de manière appropriée. Lorsque l'on parle de défis mondiaux tels que le réchauffement climatique, des technologies disruptives, du terrorisme, il n'y a pas de pays qui puisse résoudre ces problèmes de lui-même. Nous devons être ouverts d'esprit et adopter une perspective stratégique. Nous devons mieux nous comprendre, promouvoir la tolérance, la confiance et nous devons encourager la coopération de manière sensée. Nous devons faire en sorte que la mondialisation économique soit plus équilibrée, plus juste pour que ces bénéfices puissent profiter à tous. Nous devons former d'autres relations internationales au cœur desquelles il y aurait la justice, l'équité, créer une communauté avec un avenir partagé pour l'humanité. Nous pensons que c'est la seule manière d'atteindre la prospérité. Comme l'a observé le président Xi au cours du dernier forum, tant que l'on garde cet objectif à l'esprit, tant que l'on travaille main dans la main pour assumer nos responsabilités et faire face aux difficultés, nous arriverons à faire du monde un monde meilleur et faire en sorte que nos peuples vivent des vies meilleures. Je souhaite mettre en exergue le fait que la Chine est une force qui aspire à la paix mondiale, au développement et à l'ordre international. La Chine reste un pays en développement malgré ses progrès économiques indéniables. Nous gérerons nos propres affaires, nous le ferons bien et nous sommes prêts à travailler avec le reste de la communauté internationale pour soutenir une vision qui se concentrerait sur des bénéfices partagés. Nous soutenons le multilatéralisme, le développement commun et le progrès. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Merci, Dr. Schwab.
Merci, Monsieur Liu, pour ces réaffirmations suite au discours très important prononcé par le président Xi Jinping l'année dernière. Vous avez réaffirmé les engagements pris pour un système mondial ouvert, pour un rôle responsable de la Chine dans un monde basé sur le multilatéralisme, un monde basé sur une ouverture plus grande de votre pays. Par conséquent, nous sommes très reconnaissants que vous soyez venus ici pour reconfirmer et pour développer encore davantage les idées qui ont été présentées ici l'année dernière. J'ai une question pour conclure notre session. Vous avez présenté les politiques visant à ouvrir encore davantage votre pays. Quelles sont les mesures concrètes que vous prendrez en 2018 à cet égard? Merci beaucoup pour cette question. Si vous le permettez, je vais répondre à votre question en chinois. Ce sera plus simple. Pour ce qui est de l'ouverture, Dr. Schwab, eh bien, vous venez de poser à l'instant une question qui porte sur les politiques précises d'ouverture de la Chine. C'est une question très importante. En l'état actuel, nous poursuivrons nos efforts dans deux domaines. Tout d'abord, nous mettrons en œuvre les décisions qui ont été prises par le président Xi Jinping l'année dernière. Nous concrétiserons aussi les décisions d'ouverture prises par le président Xi. Et puis, alors que nous célébrerons le 40e anniversaire de réforme et de l'ouverture, nous introduirons de nouvelles mesures de réforme et d'ouverture. Le président Xi a pris des décisions importantes qui se concentreront sur 4 domaines. Tout d'abord, l'ouverture du secteur financier, qui est très importante. Deuxièmement, l'ouverture du secteur de la transformation et de certains services. Troisièmement, la protection des droits de propriété, en particulier de la propriété intellectuelle, et quatrièmement, l'augmentation des importations. Ça, ce sont les premiers points. Je vais, si vous le permettez, vous fournir quelques explications. Tout d'abord, l'ouverture du secteur financier. Nous nous sommes engagés à prendre des mesures d'ouverture dans le secteur banquier, le secteur des assurances. Et en ce qui me concerne, eh bien, beaucoup d'amis étrangers m'ont demandé quand ces mesures vont-elles se concrétiser. Je vais vous répondre. Nous allons mettre en œuvre ces réformes une par une au cours de cette année. Le plus tôt sera le mieux. Deuxièmement, l'ouverture du secteur de la transformation et de certains services. Sur la base de ce que nous savons à l'heure actuelle, nous allons renforcer encore l'ouverture du secteur de la transformation navale, des services du secteur aérien et des routes. Nous voulons supprimer les restrictions sur les investissements étrangers directs. Nous allons adopter des approches concernant le traitement national. Nous renforcerons aussi la protection des droits d'auteur, les droits de la propriété intellectuelle, ce qui est très important. Nous avons attaché beaucoup d'importance au cours des dernières années à cette question. Nous avons fait beaucoup d'efforts et à l'avenir, nous allons mettre en œuvre des mesures supplémentaires importantes. Nous sommes disposés à travailler avec la communauté internationale pour faire des progrès dans ce domaine. Les entreprises chinoises le souhaitent vivement et la communauté internationale regarde de très près nos efforts dans ce domaine. Quatrièmement, nous allons augmenter les importations. L'année dernière, nous avons réduit les droits de douane sur 180 produits de consommation. On a les droits de 17,3% à 7,3%. Donc on va encore renforcer les efforts dans ce domaine. On va graduellement réduire les droits de douane sur les automobiles importées. En outre, nous allons accueillir le premier grand congrès chinois importation-exportation à Shanghai, où 120 pays ont dit qu'ils souhaitaient participer. Et j'aimerais profiter de l'occasion pour justement augmenter les importations afin d'assurer un meilleur équilibre de la balance des comptes courants et pour créer également plus d'opportunités pour les autres pays. Voilà, ça c'est un des aspects. L'autre, c'est que comme nous célébrons le 40e anniversaire de nos réformes et de l'ouverture, nous allons introduire davantage de réformes. Nous avons commencé ce processus en 1978. En 78, pardon. Et donc nous fêtons maintenant le 40e anniversaire de cette politique de réforme et d'ouverture. Nous avons constaté que grâce à ces réformes, eh bien, nous avons créé le miracle de l'économie chinoise et nous devons fêter et célébrer ces nouvelles politiques. Et la meilleure façon de commémorer l'occasion, c'est d'introduire plus de réformes. Notre gouvernement est en train d'étudier très attentivement les nouvelles mesures. Et là, j'aimerais vous dire que nous travaillerons de façon responsable. Certaines des mesures iront même au-delà des attentes de la communauté internationale. Et enfin, mais c'est important, j'aimerais souligner le fait que l'ouverture, ce n'est pas seulement important pour la Chine, c'est important aussi pour le reste du monde. Donc discutons ensemble afin de faire avancer la mondialisation économique. Merci pour votre question, Monsieur Schwab.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. C'est une excellente façon, en effet, de célébrer le 40e anniversaire de la politique d'ouverture et de réforme de la Chine. Et je crois que tous les entrepreneurs étrangers ici, présents dans la salle, vont repartir de cette session en ayant à l'esprit que les réformes non seulement seront à la hauteur des attentes, mais qu'elles iront même au-delà de leurs attentes. Alors j'aimerais profiter de cette occasion, en la présence d'une très forte délégation chinoise ici, pour vous remercier, pour vous dire que nous sommes vraiment très reconnaissants pour ces 40 années de coopération solide. Nous sommes fiers au Forum d'avoir été un petit partenaire dans ce grand processus qui a duré 40 ans. Excellence, Monsieur Liu He, j'aimerais vous remercier pour avoir fait l'effort de venir ici, à Davos. Vous l'avez constaté, nous avons beaucoup de neige ici. Alors peut-être que quand vous organiserez les Jeux olympiques, nous pourrons exporter une partie de notre neige vers votre pays. Quoi qu'il en soit, nous vous souhaitons nos meilleurs vœux de réussite. Nous savons que vous êtes le principal architecte de toutes ces réformes, donc nous vous souhaitons bonne chance pour l'exécution de ces politiques. Merci encore d'être venu.